What's up guys? On today's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to be taking a look at how you become a psychologist and why you should be considering it as a career. Now, psychologists work in many different settings, under many different banners, and they work with numerous different types of populations and demographics. There's also never been a better time, at least in my opinion, to be involved in psychology and to be pursuing a career in psychology. So, on today's episode, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at what psychologists do, the different ways in which psychologists work, how to become a psychologist, and why you should be considering it. So the first question we have to ask is, what exactly do psychologists do? Because I think in today's society, psychology or mental health or therapy for anything like that is a very abstract term. In society, we don't really grasp what these people do. We don't really grasp what psychologists do. The truth is, psychologists do a number of different things. They work in mental health. They work in organizations, they work in charities and in governmental settings. They work in so many different places. Psychology is all about understanding people. It's all about understanding the human mind, the human emotions, the context around people and how they react to different people and how they absorb their environments and what that does for them. Psychology, therefore, can be transferable to so many different professions. Automatically, I think in society, at least the people I speak to, they immediately think that psychology is all about mental health and one-to-one therapy. Now, that's exactly what I do, although I'm a year away from being fully qualified. That is what I do. But like I said, psychologists do so much more than just that. There are numerous different types of psychology. There's counseling psychology, clinical psychology, occupational health, sports and exercise. There's so many different forms of psychology. And with those different forms come different psychologists doing different things. You know, counseling psychology and clinical psychology are very similar in a number of different ways, and I actually did a video on that in GetPsyched about counseling psychology versus clinical psychology and looked at the comparisons and the contrast. I encourage you to check that out. But counseling psychology is all about that kind of therapeutic mental health one-to-one work. Clinical psychology does that too, but also works on a diagnostic basis. Occupational psychology works within organizations and employment centers. Sports and exercise psychologists work with sports teams and actually improving the performance and motivation of athletes. Health psychology look at the health demographic as well. So that's a very vague and abstract overview of the different forms of psychology, but it speaks to the fact that there's so many different ways in which psychologists can work and different populations that they work with. So a very, very beginner overview as to what psychologists do and the different types of psychologists. But if you're considering becoming a psychologist, what are some of the things that you need to be focusing on? Well, first of all, you need to be thinking about your studies. Basically, you need that undergraduate degree in psychology. You need to get enough qualifications in your school in order to progress into university to pursue a psychology undergraduate degree. Now, the first thing to consider here is that it has to be accredited by the BPS. If you're in the UK, it has to be accredited by the BPS. That way, it's an accredited psychology course, and that will allow you to progress through the ranks in psychology. You have to start at that foundation. You can also then be looking at things like a graduate diploma. You know, I took a little bit of a different course in my psychology career. I did a social sciences undergraduate first. That was a little bit different, and it required me to do another degree. I had to do a graduate diploma in psychology that was BPS accredited in order for me to get that recognized psychology degree to then pursue a master's and a doctorate. Now, one of the things, if you look at the statistics, the majority of psychology students that go into an undergrad don't actually pursue a career in psychology. They use their psychology degree for other things. Now, psychology degrees are great. They're very transferable, and there's many different occupations that accept psychology degrees. It's a great degree to have. But it often can result in people not pursuing qualifications or careers in psychology. There's a very low percentage of people that do that. And in my opinion, the reason for that is because in order for you to become a psychologist, you have to be investing in further studies. Just because you have a psychology undergraduate degree, it does not make you a psychologist, so you need to keep that in mind. There's also something here about the other side of the coin. Studies are so important, and I speak a lot at different conferences to psychology undergraduate students, and I talk to them about their studies. One of the questions I get so much is, how do I get a first in my psychology degree? That sounds cool at first. You think, you know, a first is going to put me ahead of the game to an extent, maybe, but it's not the main thing that you need to be focusing on. Yes, you need your studies. Obviously, you need your qualifications. But the other side of the coin is experience. You have to be investing in experience throughout your degrees. Psychology and pursuing a psychology doctorate, especially doctorates like counseling and clinical psychology, are so competitive just to get into. Not even to start. That's before you do your 3 or 4 years of doctoral or master's studies. The actual process of getting into these doctorates is so competitive. And I did a video a number of months ago about how to get onto that psychology doctorate and what to do in your psychology doctorate interview. So make sure to check that out if you're interested. But these things are so competitive. Your studies alone are only going to get you so far. You have to have experience. So what kind of experience should you be getting? What kind of things should you be investing in? Well, you have to be investing in helping professions. Professions where you're working with people. Things like support workers, things like health support workers. Anything that gets you involved on a one-to-one or group basis with people where you're giving some kind of therapeutic skills. You know, for me, I worked as a support worker for children with additional support needs. That was great experience. It gave me that opportunity to work therapeutically with people. I then pursued other additional qualifications, some small counselling skills qualifications. I would also recommend something like that. And then I pursued professions and careers in helpline counselling, because I knew that if I got into helpline counselling, I wouldn't need set degrees in therapy. I didn't have to have that degree in order to do that. So I knew that I was getting exposure with clients, I could do some one-to-one work over the phones and online, and it was getting me great experience. You have to be investing in that experience. So that's kind of how to become a psychologist. You need to be thinking about your studies. You need to be thinking about that progression of studies. Your undergraduate degree is where you need to start. It needs to be accredited, but it's only going to get you so far. You then have to be pursuing a master's and doctorate. What can often happen, and I've talked to you there about experience, what can often happen is that people want to pursue becoming a psychologist right after their undergrad. There's plenty of psychology doctorates, and I know that clinical psychology is particularly prevalent with this. They don't allow undergraduate psychology students to go right into their doctorate program. You need to have at least a year of experience. Now, for some, an assistant psychologist role would be really beneficial, or a research assistant role in psychology would be really good. So you need to be balancing your studies. You need to consider your studies. You also need to be considering your experience and balancing the two in order to progress to become a psychologist. You also need to know that it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a number of years. I've been at university now for pretty much 12 years. Now, it didn't have to take that long. I could have done a 4-year undergraduate and then pursued a 3-year doctorate, but I did a couple of other degrees and I did some things part-time, so it's taken a long time for me. But in my opinion, the reason why I'm making this video is that there's never been a better time to be pursuing a career in psychology. Mental health is becoming so prevalent, and it's scary how much the statistics are rising and how much the awareness of mental health is increasing. With that comes a desire for professionals who know what they're doing. Now, that's just in mental health, but psychological principles are applicable and transitional through all different demographics and through all different industries. People are crying out for psychologists. There's never been a better time to be involved in that. So if you're considering a degree in psychology, if you're considering a career in psychology, yeah, you might be put off a little bit by the extra studies and the commitment, but I 100% guarantee you that it's going to be worth it in the long run. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button. You can comment on the video as well, and you can share the video with your friends if you're interested. If you've enjoyed today's video, then you're definitely going to enjoy this video on Can Mental Health Issues Be Cured? Make sure to click here and check that out. Also, if you've been enjoying GetPsyched as a whole, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. You can hit that little bell next to the subscribe channel and you'll get video reminders every single time I upload. Thanks again for watching guys, and hopefully catch you next week.